All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Charles with the Exodus Logistics Learning Center. And tonight we have our freight broker one-on-one training for beginners, seminar training, as well as beginner level training. Oh yeah, I see you here, Horib St. Fleur. Horib, yeah, I see your information on the signing up for the seminar. So you just did the 1-day seminar. Are you coming over to the class?
Yeah, I'm still a little short in funds. I am trying to make it over there, but I'm still trying because I actually just booked something with Damien, and we did so hopefully when I get that kickback, then I can actually pour back into the program.
Okay, so because who was that? The young lady that's booking with Damien pretty good.
Oh, you talking about damn, I have her name written down. Zoe.
Oh wait, so you took a load. You took a
Zoe.
load. Okay, so you took a load for him and he accepted that.
Yeah, so Zoe did the first one and I did the second one. We did it yesterday.
So whatever the percentage is of his total that he wanted for the week, I'll break the $500 up into that.
Okay, that's fine.
Right. Now with the seminar training you just took, you can deduct that monies from the cost of the ongoing training. Now I see what you're saying. So yeah, the $249 that you paid for here, you can deduct that from the cost of the training, and then you'll get compensated for the other one. Sky, you got your hand raised.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to tell him. I see that you guys have a special conversation. But you know, PayPal has a pay later function that I used at the beginning of the course, and it allows you to like make payments to PayPal interest free over like 6 months to 12 months, just depending on whatever they're offering. Correct. And that's through Mr. Charles has it on his site.
Correct.
Yeah, that's through credit too, because I just bought a house a couple months ago, so my credit just went straight down.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was okay. All right.
I know PayPal is gonna be like, no, can't work with you right
now. Okay.
Well, congratulations on the home.
I appreciate it.
So tonight is we always circle back to the basics just to make sure people who either do not have their authority yet or are looking to get their authority. We discuss basic concepts of freight brokering, things of that nature. So the first question I would ask or would speak about is, you're over here in Freight Broker 101, Freight Broker 101, training for beginners. So the question becomes, what is a freight broker? What is a freight broker? So those of you who've been here a while, there are certain terms that we discuss, right? If you notice in our back office here, main menu on the freight broker side, we got some specials going on, right? So when you do get your freight brokerage established, you can take advantage of, we've partnered with Truck Stop Pro to offer, they have a package deal and they give you 90 days, 3 months at 50% off of their price, and you get their 3 services within that Truck Stop Pro package. You get their load boards, you get their ITS dispatch integration, which is the TMS systems built into the software, and you get the RMS onboarding, which is the onboarding. So when you become a broker, you need to onboard your carriers a little bit more streamlined. You get that as well. That's all integrated into that one Truck Stop Pro package at the 50% off for the first 3 months deal with being partnered with Exodus Logistics Learning Center. And there are videos, about the load boards, about their ITS, how to navigate it, what it's about, and there are RMIS, which is the Registered Monitoring Insurance Service. So, but you all get that. So Q Good Logistics said she just did the demo with Brian. It wasn't from. So you're going to take advantage of that through the promo Q Good Logistics?
Yes, Mr. Charles, I'm definitely going to take advantage of it.
Okay, so the first 90 days at 50% off. Okay, so that's that. The other one is, of course, we're launching our merch store. We're going to add to that as well. And our product line is going to increase a little bit more as well, with different expressions and sayings and stuff. So that'll come later on down the line. So we have different products that we come out with. We got dispatcher, freight broker, extraordinaire, Exodus trained, and then different products, mugs, hats, t-shirts, things of that nature. So more to come. So, okay. But let's get back to the training portion of it. Sky, you got your hand raised.
Yes, I remember you asked about suggestions. I would like a white sweatshirt, the hoodie, with a big ELLC emblem in the middle. Is that possible to make?
I would refer that to the designers, of course.
Okay, thank you.
ELLC white hoodie. Yeah, because right now it's just, we have our trademark logo. We finally got a trademark, so no one can take it.
Okay.
And that's a long process, by the way. Getting something trademark takes about at least 18 months. So when you guys were trying to get stuff, because they need to verify that no one owns this. No one owns the image, right?
Okay.
So that long process, unfortunately, takes a long time, 18 months or whatever. So, but I'll check into that, Sky. Just keep reminding me, like over email or text or whatever, please.
Okay.
So what is a freight broker? Why are you here? Why are you studying to become a freight broker? Why are you in the logistics industry and choosing the route of a freight broker in the logistics industry to come in as, right? Those are some good questions, or a good question, I should say. A freight broker is someone who is a logistics provider. You are in the logistics arena, right, Crystal? You are a logistics provider. You arrange for the transportation and the movement of the freight. What is freight? What is cargo? What is cargo? What is a load? What is commodities, right? So these are the things that you're going to get as a freight broker. You have two customers. You have your customers with whom you are going to get the freight from, the loads from, which are the shippers. Their names are called shippers, consignors, or customers. That's where you initially get the contracts, and that's initially where the money process starts to cycle and begin, because you get what's called a tender, and you accept or reject that tender, that load tender, to initially start the process of brokering that freight for that customer. That's your first customer. Your second customer is the carrier, the owner operator, or the trucking company with whom you are going to be brokering or selling those loads to, posting those loads on the load boards, talking to those trucking companies over the phone, via email, through social media, whatever method or methods that you use in order to get your message out that you need this load moved, and this is the rate. And sometimes it's negotiable, sometimes it's not negotiable, but this is the rate that you will be willing to move this load for, or pay the carrier to move the load for. Okay, so that's what a freight broker does. Okay, and the freight brokers have two customers: the shippers or the consignors, and the truck drivers or trucking companies or owner operators. So those were carriers. So a carrier is a trucking company that may have multiple assets, multiple trucks. An owner operator may only have one truck and trailer or multiple trucks, right? But he owns and operates the truck and the trailer. He's an owner/operator. And then trucking companies can fall in the line of carriers as well, because again, they may have a trucking company, but they may have owner operators who are leased under their operating authority. So all the dynamics can be mixed up, but you as a broker, as it relates to a broker, you are pushing loads to any one of those entities from which you've gotten from your first customer, which is the ship, okay? That's what a freight broker is. Are there any questions about what is a freight broker or the concepts, or you need a little bit more clarity of what a broker is and what do we do, things of that nature? Any questions about that? We have a small group tonight, so that's good. It's interactive. Whenever I have small groups, I love to have interactive back and forth. So, you know, people have a tendency to open up a little bit more, ask more questions because it's smaller groups, you know, and you tend to get things out a little bit better. So now, if there are no questions about that, what's required for one to become a freight broker, right? Whenever you start any business, whether it's a freight brokerage or any business, a trucking company, a dispatch service, or any business that's not even related to the transportation industry, one of the things, if you're going to be in business, you need to have some kind of roadmap or guide or outline of how you want to structure your business. That is called a business plan, right? You guys have heard of business plans, right? When you're thinking about creating a business, when that comes to your mind, you say, hey, I'm just want to start a business. I'm tired of working the 9 to 5 and I want to be my own boss. I want to control my own destiny. I don't want to feel pressured getting up, having to beat traffic, getting to work, dealing with all these different personalities. You know the feeling, right? You know, we've all been through that. I mean, you may still be going through that, right? I want to control my own destiny. So a business plan is something that you create to structure how your business is going to lay out. Okay, you have the mission statement, executive summary, all the concepts of a business plan. That's the prerequisite of any business. But in this one, in the freight brokering, it applies to that as well. It's a universal concept. Having a business plan for any business is a universal concept. It gives you an idea of how you want your business to be structured, a guide to follow, something to fall back on, okay? Business plan, executive summary, the description of your company, what products or services. Well, if you are a freight broker, it's going to be a service. You're not providing any products, but you will be providing services. So as a freight broker, you're going to be providing the service of arranging for the transportation and movement of freight through the two customers, okay? And then market analysis, you have to recognize what industry you're in and understand that. You know, we're in transportation. How does that relate to a freight broker? What are the concepts in transportation that we need to keep our eye on as freight brokers as it relates to our business, right? Well, the seasons of how freight move, the customers we're dealing with, the trucking companies we're dealing with, the areas of the country that freight moves in, these are different market analyses that we focus on as freight brokers. And you will learn that over time. It's not going to happen overnight. Okay, I'll be honest with you. It's not going to happen overnight. Okay. What is your strategy and implementation for your freight brokerage? You know, these are things you can think about. This is just a guide for you. Okay. And we haven't even gotten into the requirements of a freight broker to start. We haven't even gotten into the concept of creating your business, the name of your company, the structure of your business, and then the EIN. We're talking about just formulating a business plan, a universal concept, whether it's freight brokering or anything. But right now, it's particularly freight brokering, right? If you have a team, and then if you have, what's your projections and financial statement? So now, and we're in the prerequisite area of our portal. For those of you who have access to this is back here, okay? After you've created your business plan, and your business plan, it changes, it fluctuates with things that you may decide, okay, maybe this doesn't apply right here. Maybe I should change this and do that, right? So next is a business name. How would I name my company? How would I name my freight brokerage, right? What's a good term that I want to call myself? You know, because a name is important in the sense that it's an identifier of who you are, who your company is, and who your company and what your company will represent for you, right? So you want to create a name that's unique and stands out. and tells the character of who you are, your disposition, things of that nature. So keep that in mind. That's important. You may want to write that down. Keep that in mind. That's important, right? Because if you just say, let's say you come up with a crazy name, In the Hood Logistics. Come on now. This is a professional. If you're going to be in the industry, Charmaine, she crack it up. If you're going to be in the industry, you want to behave in the industry in a professional manner that you're going to get respect. If you call yourself In the Hood Logistics and go to a shipper trying to get loads, guess what's going to happen to you? Everyone could pretty much guess what's going to happen. They're not going to give you anything. In the Hood Logistics, you see what I'm saying? Or Al Qaeda freight brokerage. You know what I'm saying? Words mean something, right? Words trigger certain reactions from different people, right? So that's important to keep in mind too, how you name your company, right? So your business name is all, and we haven't even talked about the actual concept of starting your freight brokerage. We're over here getting our business plan concepts in order, and then talking about our business name. So anything logistics or anything freight brokerage is pretty good, especially if you're just wanting to be a freight broker and you're not going to start a trucking company or do anything else, then something freight brokerage could be in your name. Otherwise, I would say something logistics, ABC Logistics or Charmaine Logistics, or, you could name it after a deceased loved one, or, something that grabs attention of the potential customers that you're going to be getting freight from. Okay. So that's the business name. So we got a business plan, business name, right? Any questions so far on that? No.
Would it be the same concept if you wanted to become a freight broker agent?
So if you are a freight broker agent, you are working under the authority of an already established freight brokerage. So you are contracted with that company, right? So there's no need to come up with a name or anything like that, because you're working under them and they are paying you as an independent contractor based off of the contract and the commission split that you have with that specific freight brokerage and the terms in their contract. When you are an agent of someone. Just like when you are an independent dispatcher, you are an agent of the carrier because you're working, I don't want to necessarily say under their authority, but you're working contractually with them. If you are an agent of a freight brokerage, you are working contractually, albeit independently, with a freight brokerage, but you're under their authority, because when you go after shippers and customers to get freight, you are getting it for that brokerage with whom you are working under their authority of, right, as an agent. Because you're trying to get the commission split, whatever you guys agreed to, 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. And the higher number goes to the agent, right? Because they're the one, especially if you are an agent with experience and you moved freight before, you know the workflow of tendering, what's called tendering a load or tendering freight, the whole process, right? From either integrating it or manually putting it into a TMS system, creating a rate confirmation, following the workflow, getting the carriers, onboarding that carrier, approving them, everything, that whole process. Okay. So that's the business name concept. Next, now you want to create you got a business name, but in order to, you have to have a structure attached to that name, right? So what type of business? What's your legal business formation or your legal business structure? Are you going to be a sole proprietor? Are you going to be a partnership? Are you partnering with someone, you and a buddy or whatever, or your spouse or your significant other? Are you going to be a limited liability company? Right? Are you going to be a limited liability partnership? Right? There's definitions of that. Or are you going to be a corporation, of which you could be a C Corp or an S Corp? Okay, so when most individuals start their businesses, they are, for whatever reason, they are under the impression that, and in most cases it is true, that the LLC is the way to go starting out, the limited liability company, right? Because it protects your personal, it shields your personal assets from litigation. So if someone sues your company, they can go after your company stuff. So your personal assets are shielded from that litigation. Now, if you were a sole prop, that wouldn't be the case. They're coming after everything, personal as well as business. Sole proprietor, okay? So once you decide what that is, let's say it's, let's say you called yourself, you got a business plan, you called yourself ABC Logistics, okay? You structured that as an LLC, okay? Next thing you have to do, you have to attach an identifier, a number to that so that the IRS can recognize you now and make you official, which is called an employer identification number, EIN. So you would go to the irs.gov. They usually ask you, do you have a business already established? They're not going to give you a random EIN number until they can recognize and identify that you are a business, right? You've established, your name is registered, all the prerequisites prior to them giving you an EIN number have been met, okay? So that's that. And then, of course, you want to open your business bank account. You have to have a company, a business established because they need to see all the paperwork, articles of organization or whatever it's called in your state. Any bank you go to and try to open up a business bank account, they have requirements as well. So anything you do in the business realm that you're trying to do new, you have to prove to those entities that you are who you say you are. For example, a bank, if you go to a bank and try to open up a business account, they are wanting required documents to do that. And most banks have commonalities in those types of documents, articles of organization, a copy of your business license, whatever, right? So keep that in mind. So for those of you, again, who come up with those, try to come up with those crazy names of those business, you still want to look business oriented or business minded in front of every one or every entity that you're going to be doing business with. You want to look as professional as possible. If you're behaving as a business, then you need to behave as a business, okay? And then some other things on the prerequisites that we talk about, protecting intangible assets. So you may have content, you may have intellectual properties, you may have inventions or whatever, right? This is just general information. So the three types of ways to protect your intellectual or your intangible assets, copyright, trademarks, or patents. Patents are for inventions, trademarks are for like words, symbols, logos like we have here, trademarks, and then copyrights. If you have material, intellectual property that you want to protect, those are copyrights. You don't want nobody else to use that stuff, okay? And then of course, last but not least, because this follows you everywhere you go, and that's taxes, okay? You want to get yourself, if you're at a point where you can afford an attorney, or I'm sorry, a CPA, I apologize, CPA, do that. And we have one in our portal that we can recommend. And then of course, legal services. So that's all under prerequisites. Again, we haven't even talked about the requirements, which we're going to do now, of the actual freight broker. We were under prerequisites. So what's literally required of you to be a freight broker? What do you need? Who is the governing body that controls authorizing individuals with businesses to behave and act as freight brokers? Well, the governing body that does that, they are called the FMCSA, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and DOT in the case of carriers. But FMCSA usually is the party that gives the broker license once all the requirements have been met of the applicant or the person who is applying to become a freight broker. Once those requirements have been met, then the FMCSA will issue a broker license to that business, that company, that individual, right? Depending on what you called yourself when you applied for the authority. So what's the first thing? What's the first requirement, right? Well, the one thing you have to do, you have to apply. You have to fill out the application, that process, okay? You go to the fmcsa.dot.gov website, okay? Registration, Okay. fmcsa.dot.gov. And I won't even go to registration. I'll just go to the main website just so you, and then show you how to navigate from the website to the location. For those of you who've never done this before, right? So FMCSA, and I'll put this in the chat. .dot.gov website. And you just on the website, I want to be a broker. Where do I go? Well, I heard Charles or someone else, whoever else was mentioning it that I was listening to maybe on YouTube or elsewhere, say that the FMCSA is the regulating body that issues operating authorities to individuals applying to be freight brokers. So where is that located? Well, I'm on the website, I'm looking around. I see registration. Well, I want to register for a update or learn, apply for a new DOT number and or authority. Okay. Once you do that, it's going to take you to a what's called a URS location, uniform or unified registration system. And if you're doing it for the very first time, then you are going to apply as a new applicant. If you had applied like maybe a day or so ago or a few hours ago, but you had for whatever reason stepped away from the computer, then you come back as a returning applicant. You would have created a login or some type of identifier to be able to get back in. Okay, but this is the location where it starts, the unified registration system. The form you're going to be filling out on that site is called the OP-1 form. Okay, and that's what this is right here. I'm just giving you the PDF version right here. It is the application for motor property carrier and broker. So if you're going to apply, so if you're someone who wants to start a trucking company or a freight brokerage, you're filling out the same form, the OP-1 form. Okay. You just got to decide in that particular section, I think it's section 2, what type of authority you are applying for. Okay. In our case, in the class tonight, we're talking about freight brokers. Let me stop here. Are there any questions so far?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you change that in the future if you decide to do your own trucking company?
So you can either change it, well, you could just apply for another authority as a motor carrier. You can still have your broker authority, but you would have to apply for a motor carrier authority separate.
Okay.
Okay. So good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So this is the form. And it's the latest form because it expires May 31st in 2024. So this is it's 16 pages. So most of it is like a lot of reading, but then the form comes in a little bit later, right? Down towards the bottom. Okay. Tells you who to either mail it to if you're going to pay for it online. So this OP-1 form is the first step in the process of applying for either a trucking company or as a motor carrier or a freight broker. It is a one-time $300 non-refundable payment. Okay. So FMCSA want their money, whether you make mistakes or not. If you got to go back and redo it, guess what? That's another $300, right? So talks about how to, what is the cost right here? Since we're talking about it, and we're on page 3 of 16. Right here, $300. Each type of operating authority requires an additional. So if you are on one form, OP-1, and you apply for multiple types of authorities, one of the types of motor carrier authorities, and then one of the types of broker authorities, that's $300 each. Okay, just so you know, it's not $300, and you can apply for multiple types on.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do I have to have my surety bond before I do this application?
No, this is the first process in applying. You can be researching a surety bond company, but you have to start the process by filling out this, and then the next process is working on getting your bond, because the bond company you select, whether it's a surety bond, there's different bond types, a surety bond or a trust fund, they will file the necessary form letting the FMCSA know, hey, they've met the next requirement, which is having a bond. You did the first requirement, which is filling out the application to be a broker. The next requirement is the bond, which is what we're going to discuss next. So, but this is the first step.
Okay.
Okay. So these are the operating authority types. You are either on the motor carrier side, it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Whether you are motor carrier property except household good, a common carrier, contract carrier, common carrier of household goods, or a contract carrier of household goods. And there are other ones too, passengers, things like that. And then the broker type is two types of broker authorities. There's a broker of property except household goods and a broker of household goods. Most of you will be applying for a broker of property except household goods. Getting into household goods brokering involves a whole different genre of things you have to do in addition to what you are required to do when you initially apply to be a freight broker, okay? So you're doing the OP-1 form. There is the OP-1P form, which is for passenger carrier. I just said passenger, right? The type of carrier authority that's passengers. That's the OP-1. And then there's dealing with freight forwarding, OP-1 parentheses FF. FF stands for freight forwarders. Those are individuals who consolidate shipments to send them to one location, either domestically or internationally. Those are freight forwarders, where they warehouse various shipments from different shippers to consolidate if they're going in the same direction. And so that's a different beast. So we're here, okay? Can someone drive under your MC as a freight broker? If they are an asset, if you have them as an asset under your broker authority, if you're an asset-based brokerage, yes. If someone is if you're trying to onboard them, they're going to use their own MC. They're just going to be onboarded under your brokerage to move freight for you, Stephanie. All right. So this is the OP-1 form continuing on. So now here's the steps. We got this on the website too, the steps right here. Well, since we're in the form, we might as well just go ahead and continue in the actual OP-1 form, right? So the first one, again, the applicant submits, you guys are submitting your OP-1 or your OP-1P, which is the passenger, or your OP-1FF, which is freight forwarder. You guys are doing the OP-1. You will receive, after you fill out that and submit the $300, at some point, you're going to either get via email or mail parcel a letter, you know, that has your MC and DOT number, but it's not active. They're just giving you a letter that's showing the number that you're going to be assigned once your authority becomes active, okay? That's step 2. Step 3, there is a 10-day protest. When that starts, it typically starts closer to once you finish the application process than it does prior to you getting your authority active, okay? What does this mean, the 10-day protest? Someone can find out, because when you submit to become a freight broker, when you fill out the OP-1 form, this is a matter of public record. When you hit submit and pay that $300, FMCSA logs your information, because it's public data, into their register, right? How do we know this? Let's go to Safer and go to the register. My apologies. Just go FMCSA register. All right, just showing you. This is the FMCSA register. It contains any changes, whether it's a name change, someone just applied for their authority as a broker or a motor carrier, anyone who had their authorities, whether it's a broker or motor carrier, suspended, anything, title changes, address changes, anything that affects that particular entity as a motor carrier or freight broker, the FMCSA in 2-week increments logs this data as a matter of public record where anyone can check and verify. And this, as I chose the oldest one. When you notice I clicked the PDF report link, I clicked the bottom one, not the top one. That's why you see this old date. If I was to go back and click this one, then the date's going to change. It's going to show the 27th, which is today, the most current one, as of 10:30 this morning, which is fine. That's fine. What they recently posted, in other words, in their register. Okay. So name changes, certificates, permits, licenses, any changes. But when you go down to the area where it shows individuals who submitted as freight forwarders or motor carriers or brokers, individuals who submitted and applied for an authority, not necessarily those who've gotten it. So when you complete this OP1 form and submit your $300 for payment, your information will be logged back here also. Somebody might see that and challenge it. Hey man, this person shouldn't be a broker. They're unethical, they steal, whatever the reason, and they can protest that, right? And for whatever reason. And then go through that process. And that's a process to protesting someone's submission to be a freight broker. It rarely happens, but it's there for a reason. I cannot understand. It fathoms, boggles my mind, but you know, okay, step 3. Step 4 is where Naomi Ramirez mentioned about the bond. Insurance company files forms with FMCSA. That is the next major requirement after you submitted your $300 to start the process of applying for an authority. So what does that mean? A broker needs to have a bond on file showing financial responsibility as a freight broker to their customers, to the shippers as well as to the carriers. Because if a broker doesn't pay or does something that breaches a contract between their shipper or their carriers, their two customers, those parties who were breached can file a claim against the bond of the broker to recoup the monies that was lost. The purpose of the bond is to show that financial responsibility. The value of the bond is $75,000. It is you pay an annual, one-time annual cost to have this $75,000 coverage. It's based off of credit and other factors, but credit is mainly one. The better your credit, the lower your annual cost for that bond will be, okay? We've seen as low as $750 to about $3,000, depending on where you are in the process, okay? Whatever bond company you decide as a freight broker to go with, whether it's a surety, there's 2 types of bonds. One's called a surety bond, and the other one's called a trust fund. You can only apply for one or the other, not both. Most new brokers and I would say 80% of the individuals who are going to get a bond are going to go under the surety route as opposed to the trust fund. The reason being is it's rare that you find someone who happens to have $75,000 just laying around in escrow. They can just put it in a escrow account to have bond coverage. Most people is going to pay the bond a premium to have that coverage. So they'll go the surety route. Yes, Scott.
Okay, the surety bond, is it similar to like an insurance plan? So let's say, and I have to put in a claim with the surety bond. Do they raise your amount, your monthly amount that you have to pay?
I don't know any cases of that, but I would imagine it could be a possibility. It depends on the bond company and what their terms are when you apply for a bond with them.
Hey, Charles,
Sir.
Okay,
there's not a monthly amount on a bond payment. You're gonna pay that bond up front.
Right.
oh,
Now, what they may
Okay.
do is they may raise it per se when it comes time to renew it, or they may not renew it because of excessive claims.
okay, thank you, Mr. Nelson, okay.
And is that the MC 84?
So the surety, so there's 2 types of bond coverages, right? There is one's called the BMC. The surety bond is called the.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, that's what I was trying to say, the BC
Okay.
84 or
So
the,
the BMC-84 is the form that a bond company files for a surety bond. And then the BMC-85 is the trust fund. So one or the other, whichever one you decide to file, you only have to have one. You don't need both, one or the other. And most new brokers go with the BMC-84. The bond company, not the applicant, not you, the person who's applying to be the freight broker, but the bond company that you selected to get your bond through is the company that has to file the form with FMCSA saying, hey, this person has met our requirements to have surety.
okay.
Okay.
Because my insurance lady asked me today, because I kind of skipped that I just asked her to get me a surety bond quote, and she was asking me, this is my question. She was asking me, do I have a DOT number? I don't need to have a DOT number, right?
Probably should have showed her your grant letter that when you filled out the application, the number that you are going to eventually have once FMCSA activates and gives you a broker license. That's probably,
Does she have a grant letter, Charles?
do you have a grant? So did you, Naomi, did you fill out the OP1 form and applied to be a broker?
To be honest, I skipped that part. I thought that I needed to have the surety bond when I was to apply for the OP1. So that's why, because I just thought that I needed to have insurance before to show them that I do before I even go for the OP1.
No, you put the cart before the horse.
This is showing me a lot right now.
Yeah, you put the cart before the horse. You gotta apply to be either a motor carrier or a freight broker. Then you go through the process of meeting the requirements of what you applied for.
Yeah.
Okay?
But once you apply and pay your money, they're gonna issue a DOT number and an MC number. The MC's number not gonna be active, but that DOT.
We have an MC as a carrier, but it was like 3 years ago, and I couldn't remember that part there. If I apply first and then, so I just wanted to be ready, and I asked her like, "Hey, can you get me a quote on the surety bond?" And she came and asked me, "Do you have a DOT number for this?" And I'm like, "I don't think I need a DOT number for this one." But
so whatever MC or DOT number you had as a carrier is going to be irrelevant when you are applying for this.
I am keeping it separate, like you said. We had a conversation on the phone, so I'm keeping it separate. We got a whole a different LLC, and we keeping the brokerage separate from the trucking company.
Right. So the bond company they're just doing their process. They have a system in place. They have checks and balances. They want to make sure that if you have an MC or DOT number, that means you already went through the process through FMCSA and applied for the OP1 form. So they're just wanting to verify that before they start their process of qualifying you for whatever bond that you apply for.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
And so after the application, then it's the bond, right? And the bond company, land surety, whoever, right? International surety, whatever bond company you select based off of your research, or anyone maybe gave you some advice, they will go through that process. So next, Mercuzar Enterprises.
Hi, yes. So the surety bond is an insurance company, but it's not the actual insurance policy that you need based on what freight you're going to be hauling.
So let me give you. Correct. So the bond, so the surety bond or the trust fund, whichever one, that is one of the requirements. It's in place for you to have that coverage, that financial responsibility initially at $75,000 as a freight broker. It protects your two customers, the shippers, as well as the carriers, the motor carriers, owner operators, whoever, right? From your financial irresponsibility, negligence, or just flat out belligerence, right? So because the parties who have been breached, in the case of you being a broker, they can file a claim to recoup monies, and they can file that with your bond company saying, hey, I was, as a shipper, hey, I was in a contract with this broker and they breached their contract. Or as a carrier, hey, I was in the contract with this freight broker and their net terms of payment has come and gone, expired, and I still haven't received payment. So now the bond company obviously is going to do their process. Everybody has a process of checks and balances, investigate it, find out what's going on. And if the claimant is right in this claim, then obviously they're going to get awarded whatever they were due, right? So it's just everything has systems in place to protect the parties that they should protect. In the case of the shippers and the carriers, this process is in place. If you're going to be the middleman, the broker, then your bond is in place to kind of an umbrella. It's an umbrella for you. It's a requirement for you to have. Because why would I, as the FMCSA, Why would I give you an authority if you don't have any systems in place to protect the parties that you're going to be doing business with? And that's what the bond comes in at.
Okay.
So
And then, so
the
the insurance, oh,
sorry, go ahead, honey.
and so the insurance, that will be based on the cargo that I'm hiring. So say if I'm hauling or brokering containers, that would be like maybe $300,000 a year policy, then versus a cars maybe 500,000 a year or whatever. Something like that. Like the shipper would tell me what I need to have, the minimum I need to have to haul their freight.
Right. So in addition to having your bond, which requires you to be an active broker, the customers that you go after for their freight, they may require extra insurance, like contingent cargo, errors and omissions, or whatever extra insurance that they deem that's needed. If you want our shipments or our load, this is the extra insurance that we require. Your $75,000 is cool. That's cool for you to be a legal broker. We're cool with that. But if you want to move our loads, we need an extra 300,000 contingent or general liability of another $1 million or whatever, right? So now you're getting into supplemental coverages now at this point.
Okay.
You can either go through your bond company or other insurance companies to get quotes on what they require. They may even give you a suggestion. Hey, if you want to run through us, we suggest this insurance company. They've been known to be pretty good. And then, but in most cases, if you get those special shippers that require those special circumstances, they're few and far between, but they're starting to catch up in the sense that a lot of shippers are starting to require brokers to have extra coverages at some point and in some types, like contingent cargo or errors and omissions, things of that nature. So, right.
Got you.
Someone else said, Mexico, Mercuzar, I remember this Mercuzar Enterprise. What's your name?
Michelle, Lucretia Michelle.
There you go. That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Someone else was speaking too. I thought someone else was saying something.
No, that really answered my question. Exactly what she just asked. That's what I needed to know. I wanted to know, like, do we have to get insurance as well? But no, it's put together authority. We get our bond, and then
fortunately, it's moving from being optional to required, kind of, as more shippers are starting to, I guess, require brokers to start having extra coverages because what it does is having that extra insurance, contingent cargo, errors and omissions or whatever, it's showing your customers that you as a broker have some skin in the game. Not only did you meet your basic requirements to be a broker, but you said, okay, I want your freight so much that I'm going to incur this extra expense to get extra insurance or extra this or extra that in order to win.
We cross that bridge when we get there, right? Like if I have that contract, then okay, exactly. Yes, I will get that insurance.
Case by case basis. So if I were in your situation, I wouldn't spend that type of money to incur that extra expense without having any loads to move, making revenue. Because now I'm behind the 8 ball at that point, right? So I would deal with shippers who may not have those requirements, but I can still get some good paying freight, generate some revenue, and build my brokerage. And then as I need that extra insurance, I'll just deal with my insurance company and say, hey, add this to the policy, whatever. And then, just roll it into my monthly, whatever, right? So
is that kind of like an umbrella type thing? So if they require 300,000, but another shipper requires 200,000, it will cover that. I don't have to get different ones for each one, right?
It can be, it depends on the company that you're dealing with.
Okay.
It can be, but yes. So that's the insurance. So when it says insurance here, I guess it's throwing you off because this is actually the actual surety bond. They are insurance companies, but we're talking about the bond in this case, the trust fund or the surety bond, the BMC 8485. And again, those bond companies are the ones who are required to file with the FMCSA that form verifying that you, the broker, has met the requirements to have that bond coverage, that $75,000. You've done everything you needed to do. That's step 4. Step 5 is another requirement. You need to have you need to designate a process agent, right? And the company that does that, they need to file the form called the BOC-3, the blanket of companies or blanket of coverage. What is a process agent? if there's any type of adjudication or legal proceedings, like if claims, for example, have been filed against you, you have to be served that paperwork, right? So the process companies, the process server companies, they have satellite offices or representatives, maybe working from home or whatever, in all 50 states. Most companies, BOC3 companies, have agents all over the country. So if you are domiciled, or if your company is in Houston, Texas, your brokerage is established in Houston, Texas, but you have a customer in Columbus, Ohio, and there's an issue over there with a carrier that you onboarded that brought up a claim that you were at fault as the broker, well, the issue generated here. So the process person here is going to communicate to the process person over here in your area to get you that paperwork, to say, hey, you've been served this claim according to the issue that happened over here at one of your carriers at one of your customers, or one of your customers' customers, because they were delivering to a receiver that caused, or they can be picking up from a customer, a shipper, either or. Okay, but the point is, the BOC3 is another requirement in the progression of requirements to become a freight broker. Okay, and the BOC3, or the process companies, the process server companies, are the ones, not the applicant, not you, who have to file the BOC3, which is the form saying, hey, this person has met the requirements of being a freight broker. They fill out the form. So what do these forms look like? Well, I'm talking about them, but let's show you what they look like. And bond requirements, BOC3. I'm trying to remember where they were. Broker shipper agreements. So this is what a BMC 84, this is an old version of it and it's a little blurry, but broker or freight forwarder surety bond under Title 49 of the United States Code, Section 39906. Okay, Title 49 of the US Code. Title 49 is the title under it's called transportation. Title 49 is transportation. It's about 1,700 pages long. Okay, so but this is the BMC 84, and then the $75,000, and then the BMC 85. This is a little bit more clear. So it's either, and it's the same thing. Title 49, United States Code, Section 13906. It's the same form, or it's the same area, but it's different forms. One's a trust fund, one's a surety bond, right? But it's different forms. So if you have $75,000 in escrow sitting around that you can put away to cover your bond, that'll be the BMC 85. If you are doing it based off of a one-time annual coverage thing, that's the surety bond. The BMC 85 is the trust fund. Okay. So that's what these look like and how they're filled out. The BOC3, this is an example of what a BOC3, when it's being filled out, looks like, which is the process server company files this designation of agents, motor carriers, brokers, or freight forwarders, because each party has to have a BOC3. A motor carrier has to have a BOC3 because motor carriers have claims filed against their insurance. Brokers have claims filed against their bond. Okay, but they're both required, and freight forwarders, they're required to have a designation of agents in all the states. Okay, this is just the form that the agent companies file with the FMCSA, saying that either this motor carrier, this broker, or this freight forwarder has met the requirements to have a designation of agents, or a BOC3 form. Okay. And here's all the states and all the representatives in their states. They will list them, showing the FMCSA that this is who we are as a process server company. We are filing this form on behalf of ABC Freight Brokerage, showing you, FMCSA, that this person has met the requirements. And now let's move on to the next process of activating their broker authority or their motor carrier authority or their freight forwarder's license. Okay. BOC 3. You guys follow so far? So far, so good? Okay. So that's the BOC 3. We went through that. Went through the BMC 8485. Another thing too is the UCR. You need a UCR as a uniform carrier registration. As a broker, as a motor carrier, obviously, because you need to register your assets. As a broker, you need to register your assets whether you have them or not. Most brokers start off with no assets, so that's going to be 0. I think it's 0 to 2 or 0 to 4. I believe it is. But in any case, you do the UCR, UCR 1 or UCR 2, okay, and you register that. Okay, so that's a requirement, right? So now when you go through that form, these steps, and the UCR is not even included here, but it is required. The applicant, you, the broker yourself, you can do your own UCR, okay? All you have to do is go to ucr.gov, and that DOT or MC that was given to you, the grant letter prior to you becoming active, you just put that there. So who's going through the process? We can do one now. We can put a DOT number or an MC number or DOT number here and start the process of UCR, uniform carrier registration. You just put that DOT number that once you completed that Op1 form, when you first applied to be a broker and gotten that letter, you put that here. You view all these, you view that, I agree, hit submit, and then it'll go through the next step of the UCR process. And that's about, what is the UCR these days? About 75, no more than about 50, 75 bucks, I believe. So, and that's a process too, okay? Once all those requirements have been met, and these are the base requirements, the minimum requirements, you will.
Is that a one-time, sorry, is that a one-time fee, or is that something we have to do like the surety bond every year?
Correct. And uniform carrier registration period will open. So I believe it's either biennial or annual. I forget it. But yes.
It's annual, Charles.
It's annual. Q Good Logistics says she has a question. Go ahead, Q Good Logistics.
Okay, Mr. Charles, I have everything registered. I am active, but my UCR, I don't think my form doesn't look the same. All I have is the receipt. I don't have anything other than a receipt. Is that acceptable when giving it to shippers?
So you're not going to give the shippers your UCR. The UCR was just that you applied for to become an active broker. It's not a requirement when you submit to get tendered loads from shippers. They don't care about your UCR. They care about your bond and your broker authority, your broker license. If they see a bond and a broker license, chances are you got a valid UCR because you've met the requirements to be a broker.
Did she do it, or did you do it yourself?
Yes, I did, Mr. Nelson.
Okay, you should have gotten a email PDF with the certificate in it.
Right.
When did you do it?
The only email that I got was the receipt. I never received anything other than the receipt.
Okay, well, I would email that company that you did it with because they're supposed to send you a certificate. Now, remember, you just did it, right?
I did it myself, and yes, I just did it.
Okay, and that was for last year. Now you're gonna have to refile that again by the end of the year.
Yes. By December 31st, yes.
Right, by December 31st, right.
Right, because it says here January 1st, 2023, there's a new policy that they're going to enact. So what is your DOT?
My DOT is 393-8860.
The company she filed it with should be there, Charles.
Yeah. There it is, Q good. Your file, legal name, where you stand. Please re-enter DOT. So I'll just put it right there, copy and paste. Oh, okay. This is one of those websites that doesn't allow you to do that. So you got to actually type it 8860-393-8860. Your status 2023, view status, view registration. So in here, you should be able to open something up and then print it out as a PDF. It may be able to allow you, and here's your MCS 150. So you registered in 2022, registration history. 2023, it hasn't started yet. It's not available yet, but your view registration, your receipt is being generated. Please wait. There it is right there. So
Hey, Charles, it's LaDonna. Yeah, no, Q Good Logistics, you're fine. That's the way it pops up as a receipt. I think I know what she's talking about.
yeah,
It'll say receipt, and then she even mentioned that she has the December 31st, you know, at the end of the year. So that's a true sign that you do have it. So you're good.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And this,
You're welcome.
There it is right there.
That's exactly what it looks like.
So
Oh,
then
yeah, that's it.
that's it. So you just print this out and it says right there, 2022 UCR, 2022 UCR registration is valid. And this is your confirmation number, when you registered at what time, when it was generated. Well, I just generated this one. So you can literally go back to the UCR website, put your information in and get it right there and print it out as a PDF. And there it is. And it has the seal, has a watermark seal in the background. You noticed right there.
Exactly. Yeah, don't be fooled that because it says the price on there, but that's exactly how they have it. I know it says it's a receipt or it look like it's a receipt, but that's exactly what you need.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So all you gotta do is just go through the process, what we just did, and then just print it out, and there's and it expires 31st. Right?
Does it have anything for like early registration?
Oh, we have to go back in there to look. I'm not sure about that.
A lot of times after October, Charles, they'll let you go ahead and purchase the one for the next year. It'll already be on file.
Okay.
A lot of companies that do them will already have that next year available.
And I believe it said it right here too. Notice 2023 registration period will open on October 1st, 2022.
There it is.
So you can go ahead and you could have gone ahead and did for 2023, but you registered for this year and it's about to expire in
On the 31st of December.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you could have, this is October is coming in a few days. So now you can do for 2023 after October 1st.
Right.
So, and then according to UCR board policy, enforcement for the 2023 registration year is recommended to begin on the January 1st, 2023. So yeah, so you got your 2022 after October 1st this year, you can cover your 2023. And
That's good.
You should be fine. All right. Everybody's following along with that. So these are the basic steps, the processes that I won't say basic, but these are the steps that you guys are going through in the progression of becoming a freight broker, right? So, and this is the OP1 form. So after all those steps are met, then you're going to receive as a freight broker, you're going to receive what's called a broker license. Okay. If you're doing it as a motor carrier, you will receive a certificate. It's on the actual, and let me show you what that is. So under the packet types, you will receive as a freight broker, your broker license. So your broker authority issued by the FMCSA and DOT, it says license right here. It's a broker license, right? And you are a broker arranging for the transportation of freight except household goods. That's the type in this example. It's under Title 49, which is the transportation title of the United States Code, CFR, Code of Federal Regulations. It has your service date that the brokerage became active under here. and your MC and DOT right here, and the type of authority you applied for as a broker, where it says license. As a motor carrier, it wouldn't say license, it would say certificate. But we're doing brokers right now, so we want to keep it on topic, right? So, and that's the process now to apply. But this is the first step, right? The type of authority, the grant letter. Remember the grant letter when you first completed the Op1 form and you paid the $300, and then you're going to receive. So applicants will receive a grant letter after FMCSA, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, processes and accepts the authority application as follows. And then if you're applying online, a motor carrier or freight forwarder will be provided, a motor carrier or freight forwarder number will be provided immediately, and a confirmation grant letter will arrive via mail. If applying by mail, then it's going to take about 4 weeks. Okay. But that's the grant letter process, right? And then the 10-day protest. So now those steps right here is just breaking it down a little bit more thoroughly for you to understand why they are what they are. Okay. So it's good to kind of overview this to kind of get an understanding of it, right? So go ahead.
I don't recommend applying by mail because it's a totally completely different form. And once you mail it, it's subject to get lost and never get back to you.
Great point. So at the same time, the grant letter is mailed. Each company's application for operating authority will be published in the FMCSA register, which is what I showed you when we went to the SAFER website. They're registered, right? This publication initiates. So when the date that is published in the register, it initiates that 10 calendar day protest, during which any individual can file a protest with FMCSA stating why a company should not be issued a broker authority or a motor carrier authority. Remember I was saying someone can say, hey, this person is they're not ethical, they're a liar, whatever the reason is. That 10-day protest, right? And then the FMCSA will go through their process and investigating and see if there's any validity to that. And then whatever, they'll go through their processes, okay? So, but yeah. So as a motor carrier, the forms are the BMC 91 for liability, like bodily injury and property damage, BIMPD insurance. Those are the forms 91 and 91X. And then for cargo, it's BMC 34 for proof of cargo. That's for the motor carrier side, these two forms. For the broker side, remember the BMC 84 and the BMC 85, the surety bond and the trust fund. You guys were just mentioning that, right? So it's in here. So once you read through this, it's only 16 pages. If you read through this, you will be more educated of the processes, okay? Here's the part about the process agent, right? For the brokers. This is motor carriers and passenger authorities, but you guys are freight brokers when it relates to processing. So this step can begin anytime after an applicant receives its MC and FF number as described in TEP. In other words, that grant letter. Once you receive that, you can start the process of doing the process agent. FMCSA requires each applicant for operating authority to designate a process agent in every state in which it conducts business or maintains an office. That's why it's good to get a process agent who has agent satellite offices in every state. So you're pretty much covered. So you don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to meet that requirement. Most process agent companies have agents in every state. So you're good. You don't have to, this phrase here shouldn't worry you now, right? A process agent is a representative upon whom court papers may be served in any legal proceeding brought against a motor carrier, a broker, you, or a freight forwarder. So if I file a claim or any legal proceedings or any adjudications, that's what I was saying earlier, right? And then for the brokers, right here, must designate a process agent in every state that you have an office or you're doing, or you have established contracts. But remember, you may be in Houston, but you may have shippers in Ohio. You have an established contract in Ohio. So you have to have a process agent in Ohio, right? As well as where you are, of course. And then you can act as your own process agent in the state in which they maintain a physical office. And in PO boxes is not considered a physical office. Okay. So you're in Houston, you got to have a process. Your physical office is in Houston, you got to have a process agent there. You have contracts all over. You have shippers all over. You may have 10 shippers in 10 different states. You have to have a process agent in each of those states where your contracts are. But again, if you have a process agent company who has agents in all 50 states, you are covered, including your state. Okay? Just something to keep in mind. Is this helpful, guys, hopefully?
Yes.
Okay, so right here, certificate, permit, or license. Remember, brokers get licenses. Brokers get licenses. Motor carriers get certificates, and then freight forwarders get permits. Right here, after FMCSA has approved the application, the insurance, which is the bond, and the process agent filings, and of course UCR, I believe, and the protest period has ended without any protests, applicants are issued their authority in the form of a certificate, motor carrier in parentheses, permit, freight forwarder in parentheses, or license, broker in parentheses, right? So the broker gets a license, the motor carrier gets a certificate, the freight forwarder gets a permit that says each of these people or parties have what's called an operating authority. They have the authority to operate under what they applied for, freight forwarder, broker, or motor carrier, right? So I have a permit to be a freight forwarder, I have a license to be a freight broker, or I have a certificate to be a motor carrier, okay? Straight runner logistics.
Yeah, what's the difference between a freight forwarder and a broker?
So the freight forwarder, I mentioned earlier, they take shipments from different customers, different shipments, shippers, distributors, manufacturers. They consolidate that shipment. They can either work domestically or internationally. They consolidate a bunch of shipments that may go in one direction, maybe either internationally or on the rails or on the ships, and they send the freight out. They consolidate shipments and then they send them out at one time out to different locations internationally or domestically. That's what freight forwarders do. Brokers arrange for the transportation and movement generally domestically. They arrange for the transportation and movement of freight. Now you have international brokers or even customs brokers that deals with importing. A customs broker deals with an importer overseas who wants to import their products into the US. So there's what's called a customs entry. Well, first there's what's called a booking, and you go through a freight forwarder to do the booking to set up what mode that freight is going to be exported from the foreign country into the US. That's called a booking, and a freight forwarder handles that because they deal with mainly air freight, sea freight, or even rail, because rail comes in internationally too, because the United States is bordered by two international countries, Canada and Mexico, right? So they can deal with rail as well. So, and stop me if I'm wrong, Mr. Nelson, because you know more than this than I do as well. So, but freight forwarders, they deal with the bookings and things like that. And then the customs broker work in conjunction with the freight forwarders to do what's called, once it hits the ports, however it comes into the country through whatever port it comes in through, then they have to have what's called a customs entry so that they can clear customs to get into, because there's certain requirements when freight comes in, they have to meet. And the CBP, the Customs Border Patrol, handles that, allowing freight to come through. That's now you're hitting their world, and you have to meet certain requirements there. And you pay fees and tariffs and fines for certain things when you go through that process as well. So that's freight forwarders are involved in that. You guys are not applying that. You're applying for a more domestic inland kind of brokering where you're dealing with domestic shippers and customers and manufacturers, and you're moving freight via one mode of transportation starting out. You may get into other modes of transportation, but right now, the mode of transportation you guys are applying for, I'm assuming, is just the trucking side, right? Just putting loads on trucks and moving them across the country. You're not dealing with the airports or the seaports yet, as far as international flying or vessel sailing, or even rails, which is the trains, right? You're not dealing with Union Pacific, CSS, BNSF, Norfolk Southern or anything like that. You're just dealing with the trucking companies. So, but that's the difference. Hopefully I didn't get too far off on a tangent with that, but so, all right, is that good for you?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sticking with brokers.
I mean, at least starting out, get your feet wet. And then until you understand the concept of supply chain, because supply chains, there are different links in the chain. Logistics is just one of those links. And you're in logistics and you're in it on the trucking side. There's a lot of things in logistics, right? Then you have other links in the chain, warehousing and distribution, all these other things. And then just Google supply chain hierarchy and you'll see the different links in that chain. You're in a microcosm of a big world, right? So there's a lot going on. From the time a product is manufactured overseas to the time it gets to the retail store and you pick it up and purchase it at a registry. There's a lot of intermovable parts in that. And that's the interesting thing with me. I'm very curious about the whole process from the time it's conceptually made at a manufacturer overseas till it gets over here. So if I go to a website, Alibaba.com, which is there's this billionaire, his name is Jack Ma. He is Alibaba. So I order one of his products overseas and then hit submit. Now it goes through a process, right? It's being made and then it has to be a booking has to be made because it's coming here to the States. Depending on where that product internationally is going, if it's staying over there domestically and from their perspective over there, or is it coming internationally over to a foreign country, specifically us, the US? So, but you guys are brokers right now. You're dealing with mainly on the trucking side. Get your feet wet with that, understand the concepts. As you start to broker, your vision and your concepts of this industry will start to expand because you're going to see that there's more to it than what you're doing, right? But you can make decent money in what you're doing, but there's so much more out there. I got a buddy who just got he's looking to bid on this 8-acre in Portsmouth, Virginia, 8-acre, I drove past it today, 8-acre warehouse and land space because he wants to use it for trucking and use it for container storage and warehousing and distribution, cross-docking and transloading. Mr. Nelson, you understand what I'm saying, right? So as LTL companies come in, containers come in, they scan the freight into their warehouse management software, WMS, shelve it, put it on their shelves, and then LTL companies come in and get their particular shipments, and then they get the forklifts, staves that freight at whatever loading docks those LTL companies are designated to go to. And so that's money because you can charge for warehousing, you can charge for processing, you can charge for loading. There's so many things that you can do, right? So it's just so many things in this industry, transportation that's out here. So, but you guys are safe where you are, and not safe in a bad way, but it's a good starting point as a freight broker. Okay. So this is the Op1 form, and you can read through this process. The application, section 1, there's like 8 sections on this application. Section 1 is just general information. What's your mailing address? What's your physical address? Are they the same? Check this box, right? What's your big business name? Are you a sole proprietor, corporation, partnership, yada, 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 right? Legal name, place of business, mailing address. You're usually going to represent yourself, so you put your own name there, your DOT number and all that stuff. Section 2 is important because you need to determine whether you're going to have one type of authority or multiple. You may apply for a motor carrier and a broker. If you do, that's going to be, if it's 2, that's going to be $600 because it's $300 per. A separate $300 fee is required for each type of operating authority requested. Right there, it says it in plain English, right? So a person can't fill out the Op1 form, check a motor carrier type of authority and a broker type of authority and only expects to pay $300. That is not going to happen. As a matter of fact, they're either going to kick you out or give you an error message saying, hey, you owe us another $300. Okay. Then it breaks down the types of authority. It defines which ones they are. So the 4 motor carrier, but the ones we were talking about were the broker of property, except household goods, and the broker of household goods. So here are the differences. You guys are applying for a broker of property except household goods, which is right here. So what is that? An individual, partnership, or corporation that receives payment for arranging the transportation of property except household goods belonging to others, shippers, by using an authorized motor carriers. The carriers, the trucking companies, right? So you got the shipper. Remember I said you got two customers, shippers that you get the freight from, that you arrange for the transportation, and then you hire the carriers to transport what you arrange to transport. And you're the middle person who gets paid for that. That's what a broker does. An insurance broker, a stock broker, a freight broker. You are brokering the process, right? So a freight broker do not assume responsibility for the property and never takes possession for it. Who does that? Who's touching the freight? Who's taking possession of the freight? The motor carriers. The person with whom you arranged or you hired the authorized motor carrier. Okay, so it breaks down the definitions of it as well. And it talks about the different insurance, their requirements. So, any questions so far here? Just wanted to break it down a little bit more for you.
So basically your carrier should have the proper insurance that your shipper is asking for.
Yeah, so generally most carriers have general standard base minimum requirements for insurance for liability and cargo on their policies. Liability, bodily injury, BI and PD. Bodily injury, BI stands for bodily injury, and PD stands for property damage. Those two encompasses what's called liability, and it's usually $1 million. And then the cargo, which is what's being hauled in the trailers that you're transporting, the minimum is, these are minimums. Now you can have more, but these are the minimum requirements, is $100,000 for cargo, okay? So that's what usually gets you in the door. And then most brokers, sometimes they'll list themselves as a certificate holder on the carrier's insurance, okay? Yes, Sky.
Question to all the people who currently have freight brokerages or who have in the past. Do any of you all, and let me say hello to you first, do any of you all have any type of criteria that you use for picking your carriers that you work with?
Oh, good
I mean,
question.
outside of, you know, of course, good ratings for FMCSA, but do you have anything else that you look for specifically?
So qualifiers, in other words.
Qualifiers, yes, thank you.
Okay, that's a good question. I'm curious to hear it myself. Or do you just go in the corner and grab somebody on Main Street?
Yeah, you just say, hey, he's a carrier.
Hey, you got a truck? Yeah, I got a
Right.
truck. You know how to drive? Yeah, I know how to drive.
Right.
Hey, move this load for me.
You only killed one person, but you know.
I know, yeah, I only got one case against me. I did.
Yeah.
Besides checking what you asked for is just the insurance part, and
Okay.
then add it as a certificate holder.
So let me add a question to that. So now, and I know Mr. Nelson is going to finally answer, but I want to hear what the others have to say. What is the reason why a freight broker would require to be listed as a certificate holder on the carrier's insurance? Why do you want to be listed as a certificate holder? When you onboarded a carrier, you gave them a load. You say, by the way, before I send you this rate confirmation, when you send back the broker carrier agreement and all the other required documents to get set up with my brokerage, make sure you list our brokerage as a certificate holder on your insurance. What is the reason for that? Anyone?
Because the carrier is responsible for carrying that load from point A to point B.
Okay, the carrier is responsible for carrying that load from point A to point B before you were listed on a certificate holder. So,
but then you're responsible because the shipper gave you responsibility of that commodity, correct?
Yeah, but according to definition, you don't take possession of it. So I'm just playing devil's advocate.
What it is, it's an identifier. to a certain degree. Now, if you are made certificate holder on this insurance policy, that means that in any event that that carrier has an incident where he has an accident, damages the whole load, or he goes in and he has, you know, maybe half the load that's damaged or whatever, that insurance company comes back and you know, they want to file a claim. Say, say for instance, they want to file a claim. Okay, first thing that shipper's going to do is, because you're the broker, you got insurance. If you got cargo insurance, he's going to come at you. But you know, even though it is the carrier's responsibility to cover his insurance, his cargo, I'm gonna tell you why it's gonna come at you. Because first and foremost, you're the easiest person to get to. Your insurance company is not gonna ask all the questions and do all the investigations and want to hold his process up. But that certificate of insurance states that, you know what, hold on. I can prove that this carrier had insurance. You need to go after that carrier's insurance first before you come out to me, because mine is only a supplement in case that carrier doesn't pay. Another reason why that shipper will come after you is because he knows in most cases, when it comes to shipments, most carriers will not pay the full dollar value amount on the shipment of the damaged product. They're going to pay weight per pound on the damaged product, a percentage.
Right, most carriers insurances.
Most carriers insurance, right. So that certificate of insurance is somewhat a identifier to say, hey, you know what, here it is. Yeah, he hauled this load. My name is on his insurance, but yet again, at the same time, you know what, you need to go after him first.
Yeah, so you're covering yourself before anything else.
Right. In other words, what you're saying is, if you didn't get a certificate of yourself on certificate of insurance and that carrier has some damage, you have nothing to say, literally, even though you got all types of documents, but you have nothing to say that validly you have a claim on his insurance in any kind of way, because you weren't on his insurance as certificate holder. In other words, it's another layer of protection for you as the broker.
Correct. Did that answer the question? I'm sure it did, but yeah.
I'm waiting for my answer on my question, Mr. Charles.
So repeat your question again.
I think
never mind. What was the qualifier? So yes, so those of you who have brokerages, what are you doing in addition to the standard qualifier? What are some other things that
yeah, I mean, you're going to check your driver's record, and another thing you're going to do, you're going to go to the FMCSA website or My Carrier Watch. You've got that, and you're going to check to see whether or not he has any, you know, any violations, anything like that, or been shut down, anything such as that. I've been hearing this a lot, and this is something that it rubs me wrong, is that carriers are telling me that brokers are telling them that they need to go get an inspection in order to haul their loads. Well, the thing about that is that is totally and completely wrong. You know, there are carriers that are out there that run for 10, 15 years who have never been pulled in a scale house, who never has had an inspection in any given time in their life because they've operated just that well or haven't been caught. But the fact is, for a broker to turn around and ask the carrier, say, well, you can't haul load for me until you go get an insurance, until you go get an inspection. And you got carriers out there saying, well, I went to the scale house and got an inspection. That's the stupidest thing in the world any driver could ever do. Because you can be trying to get a load and get shut down and then end up with a $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 bill just to get running to try to get a load that you've already missed. Also, at the same time, I myself prefer a carrier with experience. There's a lot of carriers out there with new authorities. And of course, there's brokers out there for carriers with new authorities. You let those brokers out there that deal with carriers with new authorities deal with those carriers with new authorities. Hopefully you'll find somebody whose authority is at least 3 years old. At least 3 years old. He's got experience. He's been out there driving. 9 times out of 10, he's probably been driving a truck for 10 to 12 years. Some people have, if not more. But, you look for a carrier who has an authority, at least myself, I look for a carrier that has an authority at least 3 years old.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that for sharing.
All right. Q good.
And I feel like that gives you that backup. Like if you have insurance from them, if you're that certificate holder, you're getting that backup. Like if they mess up, then you have something to go for. Because we don't know what's going on out there. And I mean, we do what we do, but we still, my insurance gonna come, like they'll come and for me, like, hold on, no.
Well, I'm gonna
Let's-
tell you, this is the thing that I tell everybody, and I even tell this to carriers. You know, you build your relationship with your broker,
Yes.
you know, and because the average carrier will deal with 120 to 150 brokers a year,
Mm-hmm.
and haven't built any relationships, don't know anybody from a can of paint. If you build your relationships with a broker, and you stay with that broker, ride or die. And that's just the way I feel about it. When I was running my own truck, I ran with 3 different brokers, and no matter what the situation was, I rode and died with them. But when you out there dealing with broker after broker after broker after broker, nobody has your best interest at heart. And so when you're dealing with your carriers, you convince them or try to convince them that
Exactly.
go ahead.
Like in the brokerage part, like I need to know that my carrier is 100%, but at the same time, I need to have that insurance that is gonna be 100%. Like I need that certificate holder just in case something happens.
And you will find that there are some carriers and there are some insurance companies that won't give it to you.
And
And when that happens,
then
when that happens, then you walk away. I mean, that's just bottom line.
exactly. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is it okay to use e-carrier check? That software that they use, the
Yeah,
e-carrier?
I mean, if it works for you, yes. If you can fit it into your budget as a broker, then yes. Use whatever necessary tools there are out there.
Okay.
Because e-carrier check is it's more of a matching software. You're matching
Right.
customers and trucking companies together in your specific area based off of filters that you put into the software. So, and they have some vetting information. They have CSA information or things in there about carriers and what their records are and whether they're active or not and why they're not active and things like that. So you just got to understand how to filter and navigate that software in order to use it effectively. So, all right. I'll take let's see, I thought I had Q Good. Q Good, did you have your hand raised? I thought I saw your hand up. Q Good Logistics.
Yes, I was gonna say e-carrier check as well, but I'm just gonna piggyback on Mr. Nelson as well. You still have to go to FMCSA, although I sat through the demo for e-carrier check as well. For a layer of protection for me, I still look on FMCSA because although e-carrier check does 24-hour, like they turn over every 24 hours, I still need to know. So I do go to FMCSA whenever I'm vetting as well.
So here's the point to everything though. FMCSA is the end all be all vetting site or tool that everybody uses. All third-party software like e-carrier check or whoever, load boards, they are pulling data from FMCSA.
Absolutely.
Everybody is doing data migration through FMCSA to create their third-party software and then sell this service to everyone, which is fine. It's nothing illegal against that. But be mindful that FMCSA is the bottom line. They're the end all be all. So once you master how to properly navigate FMCSA to find the data you need, you may or may not need those other resources. So, but remember, FMCSA is the governing. So if you got a governing body of an industry that you're involved in that gives you the ability to give you everything you want, then it would behoove you to stay with that particular site, FMCSA, right? So, but the other third-party software has integrated with through FMCSA and migrating data from them, they just put a lot of bells and whistles and make it look good in front of you. They give you a nice user interface and nice, easy navigational tools, and which is fine, but they're still on the back end. The code is pulling data from FMCSA. And that's any of the softwares. And I know that for a fact. I come from an IT background. So FMCSA, once your foundation when it comes to vetting and getting any information about either the shippers or the brokers or the carriers, your foundation should start with FMCSA. Okay?
It's like the people that charge you to have an EIN when it should be free.
Yeah, irs.gov, because they're charging you for your laziness. If you're too lazy to do it yourself, they're going to take advantage of that laziness and say, okay, we'll do it for you. We have a package deal. We'll get you a whole authority, $600. They're going to go to FMCSA, put your information in and fill out the OP1 form. And then they're going to do all the other, establish your business, like LegalZooms, Rocket Lawyers, all these other people. They prey upon people's, well, for lack of a better word, laziness or ignorance, either laziness or ignorance. Laziness means you know it, you just don't feel like doing it. Ignorance means you just don't know how to do it, right? In either case, these companies will prey upon that, take advantage of it, provide bells and whistles, marketing campaigns, draw your attention to them and say, hey, we can do it for you. This is what we do, yada, yada, yada. So, and then go from there. But if I can show you a better way to do it, literally, like we just went to the FMCSA site and did the OP1 form, step by step by step. So you don't have to pay nobody $600 to apply for a broker authority. You can do it for free. So you see what I mean? So, and all the other steps, you ain't got to do all that. You can do it yourself, right? And anything else. Once you
And another thing, Charles, I mean, you know, when you're vetting your drivers and stuff and you pulled up their information, and then when you decide to have that conversation, you can pick up on a driver's vibe in a heartbeat, whether or not you want to work with them or not. You know, just by his conversation.
Yep, that energy.
Mhm.
Yep. Once you get that energy, and women are better at this, and I'll be honest, women are better at this than men because they have that intuition. Men have intuition, women just have more of it, and they understand how to use it to their benefit. So when you get that intuition, go with that gut feeling because it never proves you wrong, right? So if you're conversating with a driver, he's talking sideways, and you're talking straight up, that should tell you right there, you guys are not, you're not on the same wavelength. You know, not on the same page. You may be on the same page, but in a different book, you know, so it's time to separate yourself from that person. Because in the long run, it's going to negatively affect your brokerage. Let's say you onboarded that carrier. You say, okay, I don't quite feel anything with this person, but I'm gonna give them a chance. Then all of a sudden you onboard them, put them under a load, they just kill somebody on the interstate. You see what I'm saying? So stuff like that. And you don't, God forbid, you don't, that doesn't happen, but I'm just saying, as an example, right? So you this is your company, this is your business, this is potentially your legacy, and something that you potentially, for those of you who are doing this, leaving generational wealth for your family if you're trying to build up on that. So you got to protect, you are the backup. You don't have anyone behind you to back you up. You are the backup, so you have to do it correctly, right? If you're in that particular arena, if you're the only one that if everyone depends on you, then you got to do it correctly. You have no backup. You are the backup. You see what I'm saying? So you want to make sure in every instance of your progression and your workflow of your company, your brokerage in this instance, that you need to carry it in a business mindset and do it correctly. If it involves getting rid of someone that's going to potentially endanger your company downstream, then so be it. I'd rather do that and protect my legacy than to bring someone on and potentially damage it. You see? So.
And another thing, you have to learn to be stern. I mean, you can't be timid and you can't be easily intimidated because drivers will intimidate you.
Yeah, they usually go after the women more so than the men too. They'll start with the women. But I know some fierce women. So you can.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So, but I get the point Mr. Nelson is making though. Yes, you know, you gotta have thick skin.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful industry. This is a beautiful industry to be in. It's not going anywhere, even though we have these fluctuations in the market and fuel prices and rates and all this other stuff that's going on. This has been going on for decades. You know, this comes and goes, right? But people who've been here, who've stayed the course, like people such as Mr. Nelson, they just rode the wave. They understood the process, right? So it's not going anywhere. Mercuzar Enterprise, you got your hand raised.
Yes, I just have a question. What's the difference between a customs broker and a freight forwarder?
The customs broker handles the importing of the goods internationally from a foreign country into the US or into their domestic country. A freight forwarder handles the booking of the exporting of that freight from the international side or the domestic side. They can go both ways. You can be a freight forwarder on both sides. But a customs broker handles the freight coming in, importing into the domestic country, like the US from a foreign country. They have to do what's called a customs clearance, and they have to go through in our case, the US's case, they call them differently in different countries, like Canada, for example. But in our case, we got to go through what's called the CBP, the Customs Border Patrol, in order to clear customs here in the US. But that's the difference.
So they're about the same level?
They kind of are the same level, but they're different. So customs brokers don't consolidate shipments and send them out, either out internationally or domestically. Freight forwarders do.
Okay, and when you say that's like transloading?
No, well, yeah, you can have a freight forwarding facility that can transload and cross-dock shipments to go out internationally, either through the airports or through the ports, through sea as well. Different modes of transportation. So they have a lot more. Responsibilities that they can do, but the customs broker only does their job, basically, importing and handling entries and going through that process, dealing with bookings.
Gotcha. And so at NVOCC, that's just like a freight forwarder, but they don't have a ship or something?
That is almost correct, but yes, we'll go with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to line up these things. Because I contacted a freight forwarder. He told me he doesn't double broker. I was confused by that. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't think he understood what I was asking.
Now, in the case of freight, no, freight forwarders will look for brokers to move their freight.
Correct.
So I don't know where the concept of double brokering came in with him. I mean, freight forwarders do look for brokers to move their freight.
Yeah, I was confused. I didn't
So
ask anymore. I just kind of moved on.
So what he probably was thinking, which I don't know why, because I don't know, I'm sure you didn't give him that energy, but he probably thinking he may give you a shipment to move it, and you probably would have gave it to someone else to move at a cheaper rate and then make some money from that double brokering kind of thing. But I don't know. I can't imagine you giving him that type of energy. For him.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I was just shocked. I was like, okay, let me just move on. I was like, okay, am I asking the wrong people or something?
Yeah, or he could have been a rookie, didn't have no clue what he was talking about.
Okay.
You know,
Gotcha.
Which that's what it sounds like. So, but
okay.
You'll be surprised, people in these positions, freight forwarding, customs broker, but then when you start to talk to them, especially in my case, when I'm talking to them, I realize they don't have a clue what they're talking about, because I'll tell them certain things and they'll say, well, I don't think that, well, this is your job. What do you mean? Do you not understand what you're even supposed to do? Right. So.
And half of them don't, Charles.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, but as long as you understand, now you begin to understand the differences between the roles of each person, a freight forwarder, a customs broker, a regular broker, shippers, manufacturers, things like that, then you'll be able to start to put things together, and now you can navigate those waters a little bit easier,
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just really trying to understand all of it.
So I'll give you a starting point. Do a high level overview, like a Google search or YouTube of the supply chain itself. Look at the hierarchy of the supply chain, and then focus on transportation. I'm sorry, not transportation, logistics. That's a link. That's one of the links in the supply chain. So now once you get into logistics, now you're going to say, okay, logistics involve everything. What's the logistics of taking a manufactured good from an international manufacturer and bringing it over here to a domestic country like the US? What's the logistical process in that? Once you go through that step by step by step, now you're going to see, oh, that's what this is. Well, this is what that is. Or this is what that is. And then it's going to start to intrigue you. Now you're going to see what each person's role is in that logistical process. You see?
Yeah, I even looked up, I came across like HTS coding or something, HTS US coding.
HTSUS, that's harmonized tariff. That's a harmonized tariff code for the United States. That's all that means. When you come into the United States, the HTSUS, that's the harmonized tariff code. And there's different codes based off of different commodity types.
Right.
When they come into
like
the country.
Incoterms or something like that.
Yeah, there's different Incoterms. I see you've been doing your homework. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm studying. I came from, a professional background, so I'm used to studying. And I think sometimes that holds me back because I go down a rabbit hole.
So
sometimes I
Incoterms
go too far.
These are just the international Incoterms. That's just an acronym. International commercial. Those are international commerce or international commercial terms that's used to identify that the logistical process.
Right.
So there's different Incoterms.
Right.
Like you got freight on board, you got FOB, you got different terms that defines the type of freight that's coming in and how it's coming in. Free on board, if it's coming on a ship or things like that. So the most common one is that one, free on board, and then there's a few others, right? So yeah, I think there's about 20 of them, and they're classified in different ways, but it's pretty good. So you've been doing your work. Very good.
Yeah, I've been looking at it. Because, I came from the dispatcher side too. And when that slowed down, I was like, okay, well, what else can I do? And then I came across A-Gate something or whatever. I don't know if she's on Instagram. I think that's what she does. And so she was saying that HTS classification is something we could do at home, remotely.
Yes, coding, product coding.
Yeah, coding. So I was looking into that or whatever, until I, pick up.
Oh, I thought I sent you that.
What about the military?
So military, you're getting into. So it depends on how you come in the military. Are you trying to get military contracts? Are you trying to get in that way? Are you trying to get just military? Like, are you trying to go through DLA, like the Defense Logistics, or so there's several ways of getting into that. Are you trying to go through Chapter 31 to bid, or you see? So there's different ways to come in.
This one it pays more.
Yeah, once you decide a space to come in through a particular category in transportation, like military, for example, then you have to ask yourself, now, how do I want to do it? Do I want to go through Chapter 31? Do I want to go through DLA? Do I want to go through bidding? Then you have to deal with SAM's numbers, and then you have to do minority certifications and all these other things. So
speaking of that,
saying it's like 3 years of your authority to be in line just to even talk to them.
Right.
It's a process.
But anybody who's registered with SAMS or FEMA, if you register with SAMS or FEMA, you need to start looking for your numbers to start coming across, because the storm's coming in.
Yep,
and FEMA loads are starting to roll.
Yes, sir. I spoke to Sadani. She's preparing down there in Florida.
Well, she got to hold on first, because that storm's coming right across where she is.
That's what I'm saying. She's preparing for the storm.
Right. But yeah, there's going to be tons of water moving. There's going to be tons of groceries and foods moving. The lumber companies are going to start moving freight probably 2 weeks, a week afterwards. But right now, I'm sure that they're getting ready to start positioning water and ice. And when that happens, that's normally 10, 15,000 truckloads, during a disaster. So, if you guys out there trying to get some freight moved, start calling these companies and start trying to figure out, who's going to be shipping what, especially water and food and lumber and flatbed distributors.
Right. So going back straight, I'll go back to Incoterms for a second, but going straight runner logistics, you got your hand up?
Oh yeah, I was actually I'm actually in Florida too, so I'm actually gonna be doing that too. The with the freight broker, when we're applying for that freight broker, is there another bond that we have to apply for to move vehicles to?
No. As far as freight brokering with auto hauling?
Yes.
So with auto hauling, it's a different, concept, but you just basically you're in the middle, but you're working like the side of the auto hauler carriers and either the used car dealers or the actual car dealerships, right? Okay. And you're negotiating the contracts with the new or used car dealerships, and then you're leveraging that to go to the central dispatch, for example. That's a major load board that has auto hauler carriers on it.
That is the only one.
The only one, yeah, with 7 like trailers that can hold 7 to 11 cars on it, right? Depending on the size and the length and the weight of the cars. So, right. And so that's a different beast. So, but you're mainly dealing. So, are you entertaining that, or are you trying to do general freight?
General freight, but I mean, as a dispatcher, I have been moving cars also. So, just in case those customers come to me, I don't actually have to work with another broker. Maybe I could actually post a load myself as a broker to move that vehicle.
Okay, okay.
Now, how are you gonna post it? You gotta post it on Central Dispatch, or either just put it out there randomly on a web page or something.
Uh,
Is that the way you've been moving them through Central Dispatch?
Central Dispatch, the one thing I'll do is I'll basically call another broker, which I already work with, and they will put that load on there for me on Central Dispatch, and then I get a cut and they get a cut.
Okay, so if you're planning on doing it yourself, you've got to get in line with Central Dispatch yourself.
Okay. All right.
Because what you're trying to do, you're trying to cut him out, that other broker out. You want to do it yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, you need to get in line with Central Dispatch. And of course, once you do get online with Central Dispatch, I'm sure you've been told if you screw up one time, they're going to kick you out and you'll never get back in.
That's
Wow.
correct. You'll be blacklisted. That is correct.
Okay.
So with INCO, the young lady who spoke about INCO terms, I got some information there too. INCO terms, international commercial terms. So they're standard terms, right? That's used in sales contracts for importing and exporting. Right. So I'm reading some information for you and you guys can hear it on this recording. They're used to define responsibility and liability for goods over the course of a shipment, however it's shipment, internationally, domestically, what have you, right? Usually internationally. In other words, they spell out when responsibility for the goods transfers from the supplier to the buyer. Okay. They also define who pays which costs for the goods and their transport. And we're talking about modes of transport as far as that's called MOTS, M-O-T, modes of transport. The truck, whether it's LTL or FTL, ocean, whether it's AWS, MLB, or LCL or FCL, which is less than container load or full container load when you're dealing with the ocean. Air, whether it's dealing with cargo and commercial or even charter. And then finally rail, right? And then some of the common INCO terms are like XWorks, EXW, FCA, which is free carrier, FAS, FOB, these different INCO terms, and then they apply to different modes, like any transport mode, or whether it's sea or inland waterway transport or any transport mode. So these are the different INCO terms and these INCO terms define who is responsible for covering the costs per each type of INCO term, whether it's the seller or the buyer in the transport of that shipment. That's pretty much what INCO terms it breaks down. So you should have a chart. You may have a chart that you're looking at. If you're studying Incoterms, you should.
Yeah, I saw a chart. It was like breaking it down like food and clothing and electronics, and I think it's something about coffee or something. It's like going down in a different algorithms.
The chart handles who takes on the responsibility of covering the cost, whether from the time it's packaged to the loading charges to the delivery to the port place. Who's responsible for covering that cost, whether it's the buyer or the seller. So from when it's packaged to when it's loaded on the truck, to when it's delivered to a port or a place, to when it's exported, who handles the duty taxes, to origin terminal charges, the loading on carriage, the carriage charges, insurance, destination terminal charges, delivery to destination, and import and duty taxes. So who's handling the cost in each of those steps in that process, whether it's the buyer or the seller, and what type of INCO term and who handles the cost in that particular INCO term. So that's
which are normally identifiers, Charles.
Which it normally identifies. That's correct.
Right.
Okay. And I just have one more question about reefer containers. How do those work? Okay, so if I have a carrier that's transporting reefer containers, does he have to gas those up? Because I looked and it said something about their generator lasts 7 to 10 days if they're like an overseas reefer container. I guess they plug them in on the ship or something like that. But then the gen set, and then if it's coming from a train, it's different. I don't know. Like I'm just really, I've never dealt with a reefer container.
Are you basically talking about? You're talking about a container. You're not talking about a reefer trailer. You're talking about a container, right?
A container, yeah, coming from a port or rail.
Yeah, depending on whether or not it's coming overseas. Some of them are dual power. That means that they can be plugged in, and they also run on diesel. Now, when they're on the train, they're going to be running on diesel, and because you know, they got to stay cold. I mean, you got to keep the product refrigerated. Now, if they're on a ship, they do have places on ship to where they can divert that power and plug them in with electrical cars on the ships, because they don't want them running. They don't want to take the chance on running out of fuel, say on a voyage that may take a month.
Right.
You know, so that's the difference. That's the difference on a refrigerated rail car.
Okay, so if they're transporting them from the port or the rail to a yard or whatever, 8 miles, they really shouldn't have to gas that up, right?
Well, 9 times out of 10, if it's already been running, you're gonna service it before you leave the port, regardless.
Okay,
Then when you go into a port, you go into a port, they inspect you coming into the port. When you leave out of the port, they inspect that trailer coming out of the port. They check the chassis and everything for lights and everything else. If it's got a reefer on it, they're gonna make sure that reefer's full. 9 times out of 10, the port itself, the yard jockey keeps everything in order on the port. But if you've got a driver that's going to be moving one, it behooves him to make sure that the fuel levels are okay before he leaves out of that port, preferably full. So it's left of him to be responsible.
okay, so that needs to be known, the fuel levels and how much to charge and everything as far as his rate, because he has to fuel that up himself and transport it. Just like a reefer, it's two different. You have to fill the reefer and the truck.
Well, yeah, I mean, but if he's picking up off the port and everything else, and that charge itself, if it's fueled at the port, because you're not gonna 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna fuel a rail car or a container on the road.
Right.
9 times out of 10 before it leaves the port, it's going to be full. 9 times out of 10 before it leaves the rail, it's going to be full. I mean, it's just like, they have 2 trains that run from the port of Los Angeles to California every day. 100-car load or nothing but reefer, double stacked every day. And those are filled before they leave out of the port of California going to New York City.
Okay. Because they can last 7 to 10 days.
Right.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
And they may now do they hub over in Chicago before they get to New York, Mr. Nelson?
You know what? I think that's just a straight train.
Okay.
It's just like the Ford that they coming out of Los Angeles coming to the port, and the Sealand, the dry port in Fort Worth, they run 4 trains a day coming out of there, coming to Dallas. So it's always 12 trains on the rail going in either direction every day, coming from Dallas and going back to Los Angeles. Yeah,
because Chicago's a major hub for the rails, like CSX and
it being produce, Charles. I would probably figure they'd run it straight through and not stop it.
Okay, so it's commodity based then.
Yeah, it's commodity based. It's produce. I mean, you got basically 72 hours.
Yeah.
To break it down and get it going in different directions.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. A lot of good information, good content. Hopefully we didn't get too high level, but you guys got introduced to different aspects of brokering, different types of movement, logistics model, transportation industry, freight brokering, freight forwarding, customs brokering, ports, things of that nature. But you guys are initially applying as a freight broker, someone who arranges for the transportation. We just went over the basic process and the steps in that, and reassured you that you can do it yourself for free, right? You go to the FMCSA site, apply, and then go through the steps. Once you submit your $300 payment, then go. Your bond is next. Your bond, your UCR, your BOC3, and any supplemental insurance that you would want to. I guess if you're a new broker, you don't have any shippers yet, you can probably hold off on the supplemental insurance until you start generating revenue, unless you got a shipper that has loads that are so big that you can expense that. You can get that insurance to help to win those tenders, those contracts. So, but okay, I think yes, 8 o'clock. We're good for this evening. Our next. Well, I'd like to thank the one person who attended the seminar, which is who's that? Horib. I think he's still here. Horib's on the floor. And then Friday's our next Freight Broker Live Zoom training, Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I may have Nate and Jared from eCarrier Check come on and show that software. I can show it to you myself. I have an account with eCarrier Check, literally. So it's right here. Just log into it and go from there, but navigate it. But we can also share their knowledge. All right. This recording will be in our video library for those of you to go back and watch and gather the information. Video library right here. And then we have our eCarrier Check affiliates, Seven Oaks, TransCredit, our merch store, and then the Truck Stop Pro. Take a look at those if you feel that you could benefit from them. That's fine. All right. All right, guys. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Appreciate your attendance.
All right, Mr. Monday.
All right.
Thank you.
Peace, gang. Appreciate y'all. Learned
Thank
a lot.
you.
Hope y'all
All right, guys,
have a
have-
good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Everyone.
Good night. Great rest of your evening.
Everybody, be careful.